Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about multiplying decimals and whole numbers. Our learning target is for you to be able to use a model, drawings, and place value to multiply a decimal and a whole number. So let's get started with our first way of multiplying decimals and whole numbers. The first way we're going to look at is models. So let's look at our first question. Giant tortoises move very slowly. They can travel a distance of about 17 hundredths of a mile in 1 hour. If it travels at the same speed, how far could a giant tortoise move in 4 hours? So again, with word problems, we want to look back and make sure we have all the details. So I know that giant tortoises move about 17 hundredths of a mile in 1 hour. But my question is asking if it travels at the same speed, which is 17 hundredths of a mile, how far would that tortoise move in 4 hours? So when I'm using a model, I'm going to be looking at my grid here, and I'm going to remember that this grid represents one whole, and each little square here represents a 100th, and each long or rod represents 1/10. So we have 1, 1/10, and 1/100th. When we're looking at multiplying decimals using a model like this, what we do is we take the number that we're given, which is the first factor, 0.17, and we're going to model it using the grid. So I'm going to go ahead and use two different colors to model this. So first of all, I'm going to just go ahead and draw this first number here, 17 hundredths. So in the tenths place, I see 1, so that means I have 1/10. And then I look at the hundredths place, and I have 7 hundredths. So I'm going to fill in 7 hundredths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hundredths. So right here, I have 17 hundredths, or 1/10 and 7 hundredths drawn in. So that represents how far a giant tortoise can travel in 1 hour. But we want to know how far it can travel in 4 hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a different color just so that we can see the difference, and I'm actually going to fill in, find out how much the second hour. So the tricky part about this is we are going to be starting right here, but we're still counting 17 hundredths of a mile. So right here I have 3 hundredths of a mile, and then I add on another 10 hundredths, so that makes 13 hundredths. And then I want 17, so I have 13, then I'm going to go to 14, 15, 16, 17 hundredths. So as of right now, this is showing me 2 hours. But I want 4 hours, so I'm going to keep going. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hundredths, another 10 hundredths, and there's 17 hundredths. So this is representing 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. So now I'm going to draw my 4th hour. Here I have 9 hundredths of an hour, and I'm going to finish it off by adding in another 6, or sorry, not 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 9 plus 8 is 17, so that's another 17 hundredths of a mile. Alright, so now that I have added together the 4 hours of a turtle moving at 17 hundredths of a mile per hour, what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out the total distance that this turtle or tortoise moved in 4 hours. So I'm going to count down here. I'm going to start by counting how many tenths I have. I have 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10. So I have 6/10. Now I have to see if I have any hundredths. Here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hundredths. All right, so the answer to how far could a giant tortoise move in 4 hours would be 68 hundredths of a mile. and that's in 4 hours. So that's not very far. All right, so that's the way we would use. That's what we would do to use a model. Now we're going to look at what we would do to use a drawing. So that way we're going to this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at this problem right here, but we're going to draw it out. Now, when we were doing adding and subtracting decimals, you guys got really good at drawing your decimals using base 10 blocks. We're going to do the same thing, but because we're doing multiplication, we're going to have to do repeated addition. So multiplication is the same as repeated addition. So I'm going to take this decimal and I'm going to draw it 3 times. Okay, so if I'm looking at this problem, I'm going to have 2 ones, 5 5/10ths, and 1 unit. I'm going to draw that 3 times. Okay, so now that I have my my factor drawn 3 times, I can go ahead and start adding it to find out what my product is. So first of all, I'm going to count how many hundredths I have. I have 3 hundredths right here. So that would go in the hundredths place. How many tenths do I have? Well, I have 5, 10, 15. Well, remember, we want to regroup if we have more than 10. So I'm going to take 10 of these, cross them out, and I'm going to regroup, add them to the ones place, which leaves me with 5/10ths. So I'm going to put a 5 right here. Can't forget my decimal, and now I'm going to add up my ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my answer would be 7 53 hundredths. Now the interesting thing is when you're multiplying, do you see the place value that I have right here? I have 51 hundredths. It's the same amount, or the same decimal place is in my answer. So it doesn't get bigger or smaller. It stays at 50 in the hundredths place. The smallest place is the hundredths place. So when you're multiplying, the smallest place is going to match up with what the decimal place is in your factors. And so that works. That's going to apply right now for when you just have one decimal in the factors, and then we'll also be looking at later what it will be like if you have more than one decimal that you're multiplying together. All right, so the final way that we can multiply decimals is by just doing it kind of the standard form. What you're going to do with that is you're just going to treat it like it's a normal multiplication problem. So I'm going to do start with the smallest place value. And as you can see, we actually don't have to worry about lining up the decimal place in multiplication. In addition to subtraction, you always want to line up the place value. Multiplication, we're not as worried about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our first factor down here, and we're going to multiply by the smallest place. So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 5 is 15. And just like normal, I'm going to make sure I carry my one, or I'm going to regroup my 1, and then I'm going to multiply 3 times 2, which is 6, and then I'm going to add my regrouped 1, which makes it 7. Now, is my answer going to be 753? No, it's not. I'm going to look at what my smallest place value is, which in this case is in the hundredths place. That means the smallest place value in my product is going to be in the hundredths place. If this number is in the hundredths place, where would that make my decimal go? Well, it would go right here between the ones and the tenths place. So my answer would be 7 53 hundredths. All right, so now it's your turn to practice some of these problems. You have 3 different ways to practice it. So you're going to use a grid to answer this question. You're going to use a drawing to answer question number 2, and you're going to answer this question just using the standard format of multiplication. Make sure you complete these in your math journal, and make sure you have a summary, and come up with a question to ask the rest of the class. Have a great night.